Thank you, Dean. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I was wondering why I was invited, but I think I found the reason finally. I was the #1 graduate of this program. I think the other reason is they need someone like Ken to give you a distant view, a view from outside. So I have a bit of that today. But I want to introduce my panel first today. Christina Boone is head of the Department of Communication at Kansas State University. You knew all that. You've read this. So let me tell you something you may not know about her. She grew up in West Texas, and she performed in rodeos. She was a barrel racer. She was the rodeo queen of the Seymour, Texas rodeo. How many of you can top that? She has that queen-like wave yet. Tracy O'Rani is a professor of ag communication at University of Florida. So let me tell you something about her that you don't know. Her son, freshman in high school, was just informed that he was going to play on the varsity tennis team. And Tracy comes from a tennis family. Well, she just learned that her son won his first match as a freshman on the varsity team. Then to demonstrate how old I am, I have to tell you also that one of my graduate students at Wisconsin, Marianne Ferguson, was my undergraduate. She was my master's student, and she was my doctoral student. I got her right up to the point of passing prelims, and I moved to San Diego, which upset her greatly. But she then had Steve Chafee as her dissertation advisor, so she came out way ahead. Well, turns out Marianne Ferguson was on Tracy's dissertation committee at the University of Florida. So we go way back together. Now, speaking of going way back, Jim Evans and I go way back. And you know all about him. But you may not know that he and his brother Lauren remain the only male cheerleaders in the Winfield, Iowa High School. So pretty clearly his positive and supportive attitude came from that cheerleading background. Well, I can tell you a little bit. We had several speakers build up their Illini credentials. My father was a county farm advisor for 30 years, and I'm the oldest of 5 sons that he had, and we grew up, the first 4 of us. The last one was born 17 years after me, and I resented the little guy because I couldn't have the car to date my now wife because mother might have to go to the hospital. We live on a farm. She might have to go to the hospital at any time during my early dating days. But he was the only one who didn't go to Illinois. The rest of us didn't know you had an option. We had no clue. We didn't think about it. We just went to the University of Illinois. Well, anyway, and then I worked for Hadley Reed for a number of years with John Woods and Harold Geither and others. And I went off into business in Chicago and then decided to come back to the academic setting. I've spent the last 37 years teaching people how to be professional in the field of public relations, which is not a far step from what we do and what we've done in ag communication all these years. At Wisconsin, at Texas, San Diego State, and several times in Australia. So I think I have a perspective, but it's from afar. I haven't been related to agriculture for a long time. So I'm going to kind of set the stage and let them react and tell us their perspectives. But I'm going to try to do that with 3 points. I want to describe what I think the ag communicators of tomorrow are going to have to do and what they'll be like. First thing, they will play a much larger role in their organizations. I honestly think the dominant marketing paradigm is breaking down. And one of my former students from San Diego State, she was Chairman USA Hill and Knowlton until recently, Marilee Sachs. She just wrote a book that is, the title is The Changing Role, or MO, The Changing MO of the CMO. And in that book, she profiles 10 chief marketing officers. 8 of the 10 came out of what we would call public relations, not marketing. And what I read the book carefully, I proofed the pages for her, and all the time I was reading it, I kept thinking, these people are not just marketing people. They aren't like what I think of marketing and not what I was taught at Illinois when I took the 2 graduate courses in marketing. Marketing people tend to use a telephoto lens. To go back to my photography days, they use a telephoto lens focused on the customer. And I think they miss some things. Public relations people tend to use a wide-angle lens that takes into account a broad range of stakeholders. So I wish Marilee had entitled her book, The Changing Role of the CMO, which is now the Chief Relationships Officer, because I think that's what we're going to do. And transparency, we've heard, and I wrote this a long time ago to give to our panel, but I've been hearing terms today that kind of reflect this position. This new person in this expanded role is going to understand the importance of transparency, is going to take into account a broad range of stakeholders, and they're going to have a seat at the table in the C-suite. So I think that's first. And by the way, these are not just teeny little companies where this is happening. It's at IBM. It was at, I won't tell you, it was Kodak also, but Intuit was another one. IBM, I mentioned. I have to read my notes here. GE. So these are not lightweight operations. Adobe Systems and others, the list went on, but 8 of them. The second part about these communicators of the future, they will require data, metrics. They're going to have to know something about KPIs. The days of feeling good about what we've done, the process, the communication process, I think those are over. Most of us, and I think many of us, I should say, when we studied communication, the focus was on producing, distributing communication. And today we've heard a lot about that. We need to educate those poor people out there who don't understand agriculture, get the message out. Well, that's not going to work anymore because MBA-prepared managers, executives, require evidence. Show me the numbers. Or when I interviewed people at Monsanto years ago, they said, we hear a lot around here about making the needle move. So communicators of the future are going to have to understand statistics, and they're going to have to be able to talk to those MBA-prepared people in their terms. Problem solving on the focus of outcomes. Now, in a new book, I just finished the 11th edition, and I added a section in a chapter about the relationship between the public relations function and other functions. I added a new function this time, business intelligence. Those people who are data mining, who are taking advantage of this huge amount of information out there and mining it for intelligence, business intelligence. And they're setting benchmarks, they're setting criteria that communicators are going to have to be a part of. The first evidence I heard of this, by the way, was and they're called, in some cases, the Chief Performance Officer, asking the public relations people to help them identify the various stakeholder groups. So Yeah, the consumer is king, Dean, but there are many other stakeholder groups that can put you out of business or make your business go as fast or faster than the consumer. The third thing that the communicators of the future, I think, are going to have to focus on, they're going to be about building relationships. There is real meaning, I think, to this grand field experiment that we're involved in right now about social media. I mean, simply put, it means that stakeholders want to be recognized, they want to be connected, they want to be engaged, they want to be listened to, and they want to be empowered. No longer can we assume that disseminating the message is what we do. We're going to have to change the focus to building those relationships. And I just think about some of the situations of late, the whole obesity thing and what's happening in that area and other areas. Think about how fast it happened in a way, in my view, how quickly school cafeteria menus changed. And then right on the heels of that, we're hearing now military mess halls are changing the menu. When will it be that the government cafeterias all change? Pretty quickly, I'll bet. What about corporate cafeterias? Pretty quickly, I'll bet, in many of them already. They were the leaders. So where were we? Were we at the table when those kind of decisions were being made? And when I say we, I mean the agricultural interests. I just read a study recently. There are 26 major policy issues on the table now that will have a great impact on agriculture, and agriculture farmers are not at the table. They're not there. So we need, I think, what I think our communicators of the future are going to have to do, they're going to have to figure out ways to build relationships with all kinds of constituents. I think, by the way, having the fellow here, Ken, was just perfect. He gave us an outsider's view. And what I'd heard up to that point was kind of those of us in the ag industry talking among ourselves. He made the point, I think, most forcefully, in spite of what his colleague Forrester said about Dale Carnegie, that we were wrong. And I think it was really an important insight, because we need to build a broad range of those relationships.